dropped, and it's showtime from downtown Winnipeg.
See the blast. Moves back. Scores! Shankly wires it. Scores!
What a stop by Hellebuck!
Kyle Connor. Jets go bang, bang, bang!
Welcome to Ground Control, the official podcast of the Winnipeg Jets.
Hello and welcome. It's episode 152 of the Ground Control Podcast, the official podcast of the Winnipeg Jets, joined as always by my two favorites, Paul Edmonds, Jamie Thomas of 680 CJOB. How are we now that the All-Star and player breaks have passed, gentlemen?
Good.
Very good. All right, moving on.
I try to tell people and enlighten them into a little bit of our world, because that's what people ask about, right?
Yeah.
They're interested. They want to know. They think what we do is special. And I guess to some degree it is. It was well needed for a lot of reasons, just to kind of reconnect with those of us that have spouses or kids, families, do some things where you just feel, I guess the best way I can encapsulate this is, there was a few mornings where I got up, I had coffee with my wife, and I said to myself, what do I want to do today? Mm-hmm. And that is just so emancipating mentally, because you're not dragged to be somewhere by your job. And that's what holidays and a vacation and a break are all about, is just having that freedom to do what you want to do. And I think there's something uplifting and energizing about that. And I think that we can talk about that, but we know that the players felt the exact same way. They just probably did it in a sandy and hot location, and we did it in a snowy and cool location, although the weather wasn't that bad here.
No, it wasn't. And I think going along with what Paul was saying, I was talking with Cole Perfetti, and he said about 4 days in, he's like, "Oh, I better get back into hockey mode because you're starting to wind down." And I felt the same way. Again, like Paul said, the sun's not shining, you're not on a beach, and you're trying to figure out if you're going to the pool or the ocean. But you sit there and go, "Okay, I've been relaxed so long here that I have to get back in my mental space to get ready for the grind." And I look forward to this. I know one game's out of the way. Now there's 29 left, and plus playoffs, obviously, at this point. Touching wood, but you're relaxed and you feel better, and now you're just ready to get back into the grind of things.
100% agree, and I don't know if it's just the number 30, like just being there's like 30, like you said, now 29 games to go. It just actually feels like there's this push coming. Like it's
Yes.
actually like this is when the games start to get really, really good and start to mean, like they're all 2 points in the standings, but it just feels like they start to mean more. Really looking forward to that final push. Brenden Dillon going to join us on the podcast momentarily, but before we get to that, and this is kind of along the line that you were talking about, Paul. Questions that you kind of get asked about what we do, and this question that I'm about to put to the table is inspired from your View from the Booth column, which smart hockey fans can read right now on winnipegjets.com. The author, none other than yourself, wrote down your 5 suggestions for traveling fans and arenas to visit. Those arenas were Montreal, New York, specifically Madison Square Garden, Tampa, Nashville, and Minnesota. All of us would agree, of course, the best place to watch the Jets, Canada Life Center, but for fans that are, somewhere else or wanting to travel and experience as a visiting team, certainly those are, I can't really argue with any of those 5. But first off, just how often do you get that question? And 2, like what made those buildings stand out to you?
Often is the simple answer to that question. I know you guys get it as well. I mean, just fans in general and the interaction that we have wherever we are, and you get recognized a little bit, whether it's at a hockey rink or a supermarket or on the street or on the concourse or whatever it is, right? And you get to ask that question because I think people, they are just so emotionally driven by this team that they want to branch out and see a different experience, or they see something on TV or hear it on the radio and that piques their interest to say, that would be really interesting. Or they've had a friend, or they've heard stories of other fans that have gone down to these locations. So I get that question quite often, Mitchell, and I try to relay, hey, if you're on a tight budget or you want to do something and you want to go specifically, go here, try here first, and then move along from there. Like there will be fans that want to take in all 32 rinks across the National Hockey League. We've heard those baseball stories before. Yeah. There will be those NHL stories as well. There will be some right in our own market. How have I arrived at that? I mean, it's just been through the years that I've been and had the pleasure and privilege of doing this, that you just kind of come to the conclusion that some rinks and some of these games that involve the Jets in these buildings just are better than others. And top of the list for me is Montreal. I mean, I was never a Montreal Canadiens fan growing up, but the moment I walked in Centre Bell and knew that it was an extension of the Montreal Forum as a kid, there was something I looked around and went, this place is special. And then they dropped the puck. Mm-hmm. And, you know, from game operations to the fan engagement that they have, there's oohs and ahs with every missed shot or post or body check. It's just an experience unto anything that we've seen in the National Hockey League. And the place just oozes history, as I said, to steal my own line. And then from there, you know, there's Madison Square Garden, it's the Big Apple, and Tampa because of the weather. And what I didn't include with Tampa as number 3 was Florida was also kind of in there as well, because you can go down to Florida and kind of hit both games and not really travel around a lot and make it more of a warm holiday for your family or for yourself or whoever you're traveling with. And then Nashville, because there's just so much to do all the time with the music, and you don't even have to be a country music fan. And then Minnesota, just because it's so close and it's a great rivalry, and there's always a real good contingent of Jets fans there. Winnipeg Jets fans travel well to St. Paul, I can say that. And they travel well everywhere else. And, I mean, that's the other thing I think in conclusion to say is, I believe everywhere we've ever been, there's always been, whether it's been faint or very audible, a True North shout in every rink across the National Hockey League. But of course, those shout-outs are dwarfed by what we get here at home.
Yeah, and you know, certainly it's when you're in one of those opposing rinks and you hear that True North bit in the anthem, and you always kind of go, I mean, I'm just standing there covering the game, but I just kind of go, that's pretty cool. Jamie, just quickly, are there any rinks on there that you would double underline, or ones that aren't on that list that you prefer?
Well, Montreal, 100%. Even because the times Paul and I've been with Paul in the booth. You know, the playoffs, there was only 3,000 people in the stands. You can really fully. And then recently, the Montreal Canadiens haven't been very good. But at the same time, the crowd has been absolutely insane. And I even go back to the preseason, you know, Brad Lambert saying, you know, my ears were ringing in the building. And that's the preseason. So that's just what you get from there. And then I'll throw Vegas in there just as a 6th place to go, because I know lots of people go to Vegas. They do a great job there. It is everything that happens in that building. T-Mobile Arena is Vegas. It's great. Everything. This is so Vegas every time they do something there. So I love the atmosphere there, and clearly there's a little bit still remaining of a tingling of a rivalry with the Golden Knights and the Jets right now. And
Paul, you mentioned the crowd, you know, inside Canada Life Center as well. Before we get to Brenden Dillon, I want to give a big shout out to the fans that were in attendance for the game against Chicago. South Asian.
They were ready.
Right? 9 p.m. puck drop. Doors open at 7:30. Connor Hellebuck with possibly the quote of the night, saying it must have been the $6 beers. But man, that crowd was going all night, and the Winnipeg Jets picking up a 4-1 win. So looking forward to more and more nights like that as the regular season continues. Before we get to our second topic, we're going to let Brenden Dillon and Jamie Thomas come into the middle of the podcast here. And always a good conversation with Brenden Dillon. What stood out to you?
Because Brenden Dillon is like the biggest contradiction going, because he's such a nice guy off the ice, right? And I got a chance to ask him about this and just his demeanor on the ice. He has a very interesting answer about that. And then I found out a couple of things here and there. His wife played hockey at Minnesota State. He plays the piano and is a self-taught guitar player, so I got to ask him about that. So just some random things in a discussion with Brenden Dillon.
Shop where the players shop. Jets Gear and TrueNorthShop.com are your authentic team stores. Make sure to stock up on all your favorite Winnipeg Jets and Manitoba Moose merchandise today. Visit one of the 5 Jets Gear locations or shop online at TrueNorthShop.com.
Hi, this is Brenden Dillon, and you're listening to Ground Control, the official podcast of the Winnipeg Jets.
All right, so ordinarily when people do podcasts, it's usually about the subject, but I'm going to delve into your personal life a little bit in a good way. Found out that your wife, Emma, played hockey at Minnesota State.
Oh, geez.
So, well, I know some people that know you a little bit, so I did some questions. So just talk about her hockey career, and that's you guys have a lot of things obviously to bounce off one another, I imagine.
Well, that was one of our first conversations when we, started dating, and she'd come out and visit me in San Jose. There was post games, no hockey talk, unless I bring it up. If I brought it up, then maybe we can talk a little bit. But she's pretty knowledgeable, which is nice. When we do talk about certain things, but I think now over the years she's learned that. Obviously, on certain nights when we maybe lose or wasn't the right one, maybe we don't talk about hockey. But it is nice when you're at home to be able to bounce some things off of, or just vent a little bit about the game, and not have somebody or a significant other ask you what that blue line is for, or what certain stupid questions might come out of it. So she's been a great supporter for me, and has been nice to have her as a companion here through the last however many years.
Does she miss the game?
Yes and no. A lot of her. She had an older brother that played university at Wisconsin hockey, and our eldest as well. So hockey ran in her family a little bit, and for her, she was very fortunate to have her school taken care of, which her parents were big fans of financially. And she was a good player. But I think now, as life's evolved for her. She had a great time. She still connects with some of her college teammates and whatnot. And when we're in the summertime, there's a couple of friends that have some ice times, and she'll come out and scoot around. Or at the Christmas skates, she's usually buzzing around too, and dusts off her hockey skates. So again, it's fun now, especially for her to be able to share in this too.
I imagine your daughter, this is the next path for her. Have you guys decided on that yet?
We've had a little bit of conversations about it. I think it's again my first time being a dad. Mm-hmm. I want to let her kind of blaze her own trail per se, whatever she wants. If she wants to get into tennis or golf or soccer or volleyball, whatever the case might be, I'll be fully supportive of that. I was very fortunate. My parents gave me every opportunity to do whatever the heck I wanted, and be as balanced as I possibly could. And hockey just seemed to take precedence over the years as I enjoyed it more and more. But between the two of us, we'll have a lot of leftover hockey sticks and leftover hockey skates in the house. So if she's interested in that, absolutely.
Well, hockey schedule always comes first, and during the bubble and the readjusted playoff schedule, you guys had to postpone your wedding, I had heard. So yes. What was that conversation like when you had to do that? Because that is no. Oh, by the way, we're just canceling the wedding. Hope you guys don't mind.
Yeah, no, we all the planning, and that was she was working and managing that while we were in San Jose, kind of mapping things out. And of course, that's the year I get traded to Washington. That's of course the year that we go through a pandemic that hasn't happened in however many hundreds of years, and navigate that. And her being American, me being Canada too, we're navigating a border and seeing both sides of our families too. So that was a tough year. There was a lot going on, especially once I got to Washington, other side of North America, really, from where all my stuff was in San Jose, and then our off-season residence in Vancouver. So a big thing for her. She's the only girl in her family, so her parents were like, okay, we'll do everything we can to make this happen. We ended up just doing the two of us, actually at Stanley Park in Vancouver. And then now we've kind of been putting it off, but I think this summer we might end up getting some friends and family together to really celebrate.
Saves on the bill, like the bills. Like when you look at that, I don't know what type of financial guy you are, but then when you go, hey, this is pretty good financially for us, no?
Hey, I was all good. I didn't need any cameras, anything like that. But as I talked about her being the only girl in her family, her parents are pretty traditional, which is nice. So they're covering a good amount of the bill. Yeah. So this dress that she's had picked out and went through the whole, seeing day with her bridesmaids and the whole 9 yards. Yeah. She that thing's been just sitting in a closet somewhere, so I guess we got to let her wear it eventually.
Right, and also you, along with probably thousands and millions of people, had a baby during the pandemic. What was what's a highlight of that, and maybe something that was a little frustrating?
Yeah, well, the pandemic was kind of on the way out. It was May of last year, so we were here in Winnipeg after the season, and it was a tough end on the hockey side of things with not making playoffs. But that was an exciting thing to look forward to was the birth of her. So had her here in town in Winnipeg, which was nice. It was still we don't have any family here, so it was just the two of us, and kind of gave the first month and a half of being a dad to be able to just relax and kind of take everything in. And usually during, whether it would have at that time been the first round of playoffs, I would have been gone quite a bit, wouldn't have been able to be around and helping as much and being a part of that process. So a lot of it came quick. A lot of learning on the go, and here we are 8 months later.
What's the biggest thing you learned about yourself as a dad? I mean, it's you hear about it all the time. What have you learned about yourself as being a dad for the first time?
How much more respect I have for moms. I think that's a big one. I mean, here I am, lucky enough to do what I love every single day, and for a lot of moms, especially in that first year once kids are born, I mean, they're having to take time away from work, kind of be somewhat landlocked or with their child, and as I said, somewhere here in Winnipeg where we don't know a whole lot of people, I feel like she's kind of on her own for a decent amount of time, and especially once I get going on the road. I've done daddy daycare a couple days here and there where I'm in charge for most of the day, and I'm more exhausted than I am after training camp. So I tip my cap to moms. I think that was one of the first conversations I had with my mom was just, wow, you did a lot, and then you think about these parents that have 2, 3, 4 kids. I mean, you tip your cap to those for sure. You have a sister that's a really good volleyball player, apparently. So talk about the competition level in the Dillon household while you were growing up. Yeah, there was a lot of that. As you said, my sister, we had a lot of height in our family. I'm 6'4", she was 5'10", 5'11", and I think she saw how much fun I had at age 16 to move away from home and go play hockey, that she left Vancouver, went all the way out to Toronto to go to school, and she had an awesome 4 or 5 years there at York University, was the starting setter for I think the last 3 years at least, and their team had a lot of success. She met a lot of lifelong friends that she enjoyed her time out, and it was kind of nice to break up. I'd see my family when we go to Vancouver, and then I'd see her when we'd be in Toronto and Ottawa, Montreal, that area. So she's the smart one in the family. She's got more degrees than I think I have college credits. So it's definitely been nice. Just the two of us, we've got a great relationship. Did you guys get into competitions, like a lot of rivalries? Because that's natural to happen, right? Yeah, she's 4 years younger than me, so okay. It was a little bit of the age gap where I ended up being a lot bigger than her in certain instances, but we liked a lot of the same things. We're both very active, both very athletic, so whenever there was a soccer ball getting kicked around or basketball getting shot in the driveway, she was out there with me too, and my dad did a great job of kind of making it fun for the both of us and not just us wanting to kill each other by the end of the day. So as all kids, you have your ups and downs with brothers and sister relationships, but here we are now and super supportive of one another, and it's been a lot of fun to see each other's journeys. Was it like did you ever get a chance to go watch her play volleyball, a match? And what is that like as a brother? You must be very proud when you get to watch your sister in that type of level. Oh, it was great. I got to see her, never in Toronto, but her team actually did kind of like somewhat of a Western swing. So it was one of the years when training camp, I think, was pushed back a little bit. I think it would have been maybe it's either the 12-13 year or whatever year it was. She came out and she played a couple games, one at UBC in Vancouver, one at Trinity Western in Langley, which is right by my hometown. So I was able to see both of those before I left for hockey training camp, and to see her in that competitive environment, it's funny, you think you know somebody, and I think even one of the first times I had like a hockey fight or a big hockey hit, and there was a scrum after, and I don't think she'd ever heard or seen me talk that way or have stuff like that happen, and I think seeing how competitive she was, amongst her teammates and then that game, and it was cool to see that competitiveness from her, and both my parents were there watching too, so I could get the full breakdown. I mean, they watch all her games, all my games, so there's a lot going on the streaming at the Dillon household. How about this? You're kind of a contradiction because you're such a nice guy off the ice, but you play at a different level, a different way on the ice. So how do you balance that? I don't know. I think that was something I was very, very fortunate at a young age to have veterans that really showed me, you got to be, first and foremost, you're with these hockey guys, your teammates for 250 days a year. You're around each other a lot. You got to find ways to connect with the European guys who barely speak English, or the guys coming up playing their first game, who was me at one point. And you're on the road, you're going for dinners, getting to know more about guys, know their family dynamics, or if they've got a dog, these little things, and again try to really connect. And on the ice is a different story. We've all got different skill sets and our different makeups when it comes out there. And I tried to, at one point in my junior hockey playing days, have that nice guy on the ice, nice guy off the ice. And let's just say my coach wasn't too happy with me, and kind of had the conversation, if you try to play this way, I don't think hockey's going to be in your future. So it was something that was a big eye opener for me, trying to be the two different guys. And I feel like Adam is very similar, Lowry, and a guy who, he's funny. He's one of the, he's got a great sense of humor, great, jokes and whatnot. And then once you get out there on the ice, he's a different guy. And I think that's one of the biggest compliments that I can take as a player too, and especially in my role. To be hard to play against, but at the same time, be someone who can joke around and have fun here during the grind of a hockey season.
One of the best parts about the room being open again is we get to chit-chat you every once in a while. And one of the questions I got to ask you about, younger players tend to run around and look for the big hit. And you told me that your coach, Bob Bugner in San Jose, was that guy that kind of talked you, not so much out of it, but kind of made you aware of that. How important were those conversations you had with him?
Well, it was something early on in my career, my first couple of years in Dallas, and even in the American League, where you want to make an impact, you want to stand out, you want to move up to the next level, and a big hit's one way to go about it. But for every one big hit, you can also have the one big miss, and guy goes down, scores, and you're on the highlight reel for that one in a negative way. And I learned the hard way a couple times, and I think the eagerness for me to want to be physical was something that Boogie and the coaches really, really appreciated. But it wasn't a sense of taking it out of my game completely, but maybe just altering it a little bit, picking your spots. It's the same way as jumping up in the rush. It's the same way as pinching. It can be kind of related in a lot of different aspects as a defenseman. And I think you can see young guys come up and you got so much energy and excitement and run around, but the game is so systematical now at the NHL level. There's guys you play with growing up, whether that's in minor hockey or in juniors or in the AHL, that are so much more skilled. They're so much faster or bigger or stronger, but they can't figure out how to play in a system, or they can't figure out how to play their role. And those are the learning experiences that come with, I think, being a pro, and something when you're learning as a young defenseman to have good coaches, as I did, to kind of steer me in the right direction, and not take away from what makes you a good player or what makes your skill set what it is. Just trying to overall add to it and tone it down to make it better.
Okay, so you've played in San Jose, Dallas, Washington, Winnipeg. You've dealt with all types of time zones. Yeah. So let's talk about the travel in each, and there's a benefit to some. Like if the Pacific, it's the best time to live out there, at least from a sports fan, because everything's on early. And you go to bed for the final game, and it's still 10 o'clock. So so what are the benefits of being on the West Coast? Certainly the East Coast travel is a little bit easier, and then of course in the Central Time Zone.
Well, being on the West Coast, growing up there, football starting at 10 a.m. on Sundays, the late night hockey game being at 5, 7 o'clock. That was awesome. And then getting to live there with the Sharks, that just felt like normal for me. And I think my parents appreciated it too, because hockey games, they started, at 7 o'clock when, they knew it to be. I think when I got to the East, you really appreciated the travel. It was nice on the body. I mean, you're sleeping in your bed a lot of times. The longest plane ride, I think, within the conference was maybe 2 or 3 hours, whereas in the Central Division or in the Pacific Division, that's sometimes just a division game. So I think that was something that I only played in Washington for, the year and a half, 2 years there. But I really, that was nice on the body. I think when we talk about the Central Division too, especially once you bring in the travel through the cross country, it really is, it's fun because you get to stay over in some cities, you get to really bond and have more dinners with guys on the road. But it does add up a little bit. I still remember when we played Pittsburgh in 2016 Stanley Cup final.
Yeah.
You go through 4 separate rounds. We had started in LA, went to Nashville, which was another central, then went to St. Louis, which was another central. We're talking 3-4 hour trips, back and forth from California out there. I think Pittsburgh never left the Eastern time zone. And, I'm not using that as an excuse, but I just remember being like, wow, what a difference it is when it comes down to it. But I think for all of us playing in the NHL, you're never going to be complaining about that stuff. We all, for the most part, have ridden the buses up and down, 10, 12 hours and done the 3-and-3s. It's so there's no complaining from my end.
Okay, so before I let you go, I could ask you about a million things, but I promised you 15 minutes. We're at 16. Last one for you. I heard through the grapevine you can play the piano and you're a self-taught guitar player. Explain.
Okay, jeez, you really dug deep on these ones.
Let's just give this all
Murph, yeah. So I played piano for 9 years growing up. My whole kind of elementary, my parents said, you can't just do the hockey thing. You need to do something else. So I don't really like to share that one with too many people, but yes, I did that.
You're going to see him in the summer, so you can get Murph back
yeah,
for this one.
Yeah. So I did that for 9 years. As kind of sports and everything got going, it just got tougher and tougher to continue on with it. I think it really helped though I learned how to read music. I can still, I try to show the boys, I'm on the dance floor. I've got a little bit of rhythm to myself, a little bit of tempo. But no, I think it really did help as I love music. I love listening to music. I'm an all genres guy, from rap to rock to country to old school, tech dance, you name it. So I think that really helped me gain an appreciation for that. And then guitar, it happened in the American League. I mean, I was always so jealous of the guy that, you'd be on a camping trip or something, he'd bust out a guitar, and then, every girl
Show off.
Well, I mean, every girl wanted to be with him,
Yeah.
and, every guy wanted to be him.
Yes.
So it was always something like, man, how cool would that be? And I still remember playing with the guy in the American League that he lived a couple condos over from where me and my roommate were, and, we'd always have the after parties at his place, and he was sick on the guitar, and he just taught himself from YouTube. I mean, we're so fortunate as hockey players where, our days are usually done around, 1:32 p.m., so you've got all this time in the afternoon. And so we were, I think there was 6 or 7 single guys, all of us in Austin, Texas, and we would just go over to this guy's house. He'd kind of show us the G chord, the C chord, the D chord, and it's funny, you just, with the piano background, it kind of came to me a little bit. Again, I'm definitely not, I'm not, Eric Church, or I'm trying to think of any of these other guitarists that can just strum out whatever I want. But I've got one in my houses everywhere I've lived. It's nice sometimes we've got time alone to just relax and kind of do something away from the rink that makes you happy.
So obviously, when this all said and done, the one-man band Brenden Dillon is going to make his tour here eventually.
I don't know if it's coming through Winnipeg. I don't want to get my name out there too much. Maybe I'll just be Jamie Thomas. I'll slick my hair back, do something. But it's definitely fun to have some stuff going on outside of hockey.
Hey Jets fans, I'm Sarah Orleski. Don't forget to join me after each and every home game for the Winnipeg Jets post-game show live, presented by Budweiser, where you'll get exclusive interviews, in-room access, and more. Catch us on all Winnipeg Jets platforms, including Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and winnipegjets.com.
Alrighty, a big thanks to Brenden Dillon for giving his time to chat with Jamie about pretty much everything under the sun. Well done.
Yeah, he
really,
did. Yeah, he was really good.
Back from the break, Winnipeg Jets pick up a win over Chicago. They sweep the season series, but an interesting week coming up here, gentlemen. You got the Seattle Kraken on Tuesday. As we record this on the Monday, that game is tomorrow at Canada Life Center. Seattle battling for top spot in the Pacific. Then a 4-game road trip with stops in Columbus, a team that beat Winnipeg earlier this season, but a team certainly struggling this season, outside of the win over the Toronto Maple Leafs on the weekend. Then New Jersey, the Rangers, and the Islanders. All 3 of those kind of New York-based teams, certainly interesting. Which matchup or 2 in that coming stretch intrigues you guys?
I'm going to go with Columbus because I'm curious to see how the Jets come into this one, because there's another one of those strange buildings or places that the Jets have a tough time in, at least since I've been covering this team. So Columbus, and then New Jersey. I know they won't have Jack Hughes, but this is a team that is probably looking, with the Rangers making the move to add Vladimir Tarasenko. They're going to be looking to make a move here right away. I mean, the fans were asking to fire Lindy Ruff last year, and that has completely changed with the way this team is playing right now. Very dynamic team. So the first 2 games, the road trip, stand up to me.
I'll go New Jersey as well for some of the similar reasons. I find it the fickle nature of hockey is on display in New Jersey. It was fire Lindy, and then we're sorry Lindy. Those chants that were going on all in the same season within a month of each other. But that's a good team, and the Jets will be tested there. They also, of course, the New York Rangers have made some moves, and the Jets won in that game, so that will be feisty. But really what I'm looking for here is the New York Islanders, because the Jets are going to see them twice within a week. It's not quite a home and home. There's another game in between. But the Islanders are fighting for their playoff lives as a wild card potential team. And that is what's going on in the Eastern Conference. There seems to be a bit of a different style. The Jets haven't done very well against the Eastern Conference. They're going to get them twice. They're going to get a real good sort of helping of Eastern Conference teams, specifically the Metro Division, of which they have really inside the Eastern Conference haven't done very well against. So I'm really looking forward to those 2 games. Bo Horvat is an Islander, and let's see what they've got. But the Islanders are fighting for their playoff lives here down the stretch, and Winnipeg will be challenged. I remember they didn't play very well last year for the first time in that new building, certainly in or on Long Island. So they've got a chance to redeem themselves, but there's 2 important games against the Islanders coming up. I'll watch for those.
And if you want tickets to watch the Jets against Seattle or any of the home games coming up to close out the month of February, that being against Colorado on the 24th, the 26th, as Paul mentioned, against the Islanders, and the Los Angeles Kings on the 28th, couple of Pro Bowl nights in there as well. Head to winnipegjets.com/tickets to be able to get your tickets to those games as the regular season heats up in intensity, as the players always say. Right after the All-Star break, it takes another step. Gentlemen, thanks very much for taking your time. Let's go be good employees and watch some practice, shall we?
All right.
This has been Ground Control, the official podcast of the Winnipeg Jets. For more Jets news, videos, and more, head to winnipegjets.com.